the crimes that would occur in that area?
Yes.
Okay. So based on your review of the evidence, did all of the facts and relevant things that we've been talking about in this case, did all of those occur inside Gwinnett County?
Yes, they did.
We've also been talking, obviously, at length, and we watched the interview about the defendant, Miles Bryant. Do you see him here in the courtroom?
I do. He is to my right in a striped shirt with a tie and gray pants.
Okay, thank you. I want to talk to you about a little bit more about the phone records from the defendant. We spoke about his work phone and the records that you obtained prior to interviewing him. But tell us, in terms of, and you also mentioned his personal phone, those were sometime later that you obtained his personal phone records. Do you recall how long after his arrest you actually obtained those personal phone records?
I don't recall the exact date. It was probably about a month.
You did not have them with you and have access to them at the time you interviewed him?
No, I didn't.
When you finally did get those, were those mapped as well, his personal phone records?
Yes, they were.
And I know we've already seen the presentation from Investigator Wilbanks, but one particular point that I want to ask you about. There was some testimony, did you find in his phone records any incident where he, after Susana's taking, kidnapping, through, and after all the events of that night, did the defendant ever go back to the scene where Susana's body was found?
Yes, the following morning.
Okay, and do you recall what time that was?
It was around 9 a.m., I believe.
All right. And I'm going to just bring your attention here back to State's Exhibit number 3 and the slide that's here on the screen. Specifically, I know Investigator Wilbanks testified about this. This information that was contained on this slide, calls at 9:35 a.m. and 9:43 a.m. on July 27th. Are those the calls that you were just discussing about the defendant being back in the same area where Susana's body was located?
Yes, they are.
When you interviewed the defendant, did you have this information?
I did not.
Okay, so, and specifically here, just remind us, what time was the call where the defendant was sitting off the same tower he was 9 hours earlier?
It was after 10 a.m. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what time was it where he made the call where he's back in the wooded area where Susana's body?
Okay, sorry. It's at 9:35 a.m.
Okay. There were some phone calls that we discussed, I guess 4 phone calls that occurred in the wooded area that night. 2 on his personal phone, 2 on his work phone. Did you review the call detail records or the data associated with those calls?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to determine how long the defendant was on the phone on those calls?
Each call, none of them were longer than 10 minutes. I think the longest one was around 10 minutes. The other ones were significantly less.
All right. And so let's talk just about the first 2 calls, the ones on his personal phone, 12:52 a.m. and 12:58 a.m. It's on the screen in State's Exhibit 3 here. Those 2 calls, do you recall how long they were? Do you recall if they were even connected or he even spoke to somebody?
I think those were the calls where he didn't even pick up. It wasn't completed.
Okay, so calls were attempted, but it does not appear that there was the duration of the call didn't last long enough to have any conversation.
Correct. They were incoming calls that were not answered.
Okay. The other 2 calls that we discussed on his work phones, the ones that occurred, and I'll pull up the right slide here just so we don't have to scroll through everything. These 2 here at 1:39 a.m. and 1:46 a.m., do you recall how long those were?
The one with Synovia was around 500 seconds, so that's the one I'm referring to, was 10 minutes. The other one, I believe it was, I can't remember, may have been another one that didn't connect.
Okay. Let me ask you, did you find any evidence based on the defendant's phone records that from the period of 12:53 a.m. when his personal phones are hitting off this tower in the area where Susana's body is located to 1:46 a.m., the last call here on his work phone. Did you find any evidence that he was on any other calls than these 4 calls that we looked at?
There was one with Avion, I believe.
Okay. And do you know how long that one lasted?
A couple minutes.
Okay. That passage of time, nearly an hour or so, from 12:53 to 1:46, did it appear that he was on the phone the entire time he was out there in the woods?
No, he was not.
In investigating Susana's phone records, did you ever recover, we've talked about the defendant's cell phones and that those were, we've watched it on the video, taken and downloaded. Did you ever recover Susana's phone at all?
I did not.
As a result of that, were you able to look at, discover the contents of Susana's phones?
I was not.
Okay. Now, but you did obtain and look at her phone records.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you, and in the investigation of Susana and her life, talking to her friends and her family, other than Kelly and Alyssa, who previously testified living there at the Sterling Glen Apartments, did you find any connection that Susana had to anyone else in the Sterling Glen Apartments?
No, I did not.
So when reviewing her social media accounts and the messages that she would send to her social media accounts, did you find anybody that she would communicate with other than Kelly and Alyssa who lived there at the Sterling Glen Apartments?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever find any evidence of her going there to pick up marijuana or any other drugs there at the Sterling Glen Apartments?
No, I did not.
In fact, when it comes to the defendant's records, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Did you find any evidence in his phone records or his phone or his social media accounts or anything else that you looked at that he knew anybody at the Sterling Glen Apartments where he was purchasing drugs from?
I did not.
The night of that this happened, July 26th into the morning hours of July 27th, did you find any communications between him and anyone else at the Sterling Glen Apartments that, other than the calls that we've talked about with Synovia and Avion and his mother?
I did not.
There was some mention in the interview, I think both you and Sergeant Poppy discussed DNA. Did you ask for and have the crime scene unit at Gwinnett County Police Department look for evidence of DNA in the vehicle?
Yes.
And I say the vehicle, I'll be more specific. In both his police vehicle and in his truck?
Yes, we did.
And then ultimately, talk to us a little bit about the expectation of finding DNA in a suspect's vehicle.
It depends what you're looking for. So with blood, even if it's been cleaned up, we use a product called Blue Star that can detect it and even show like when it's been cleaned up. Yeah.
Okay.
Other items, I mean, it's a large area. It depends on what we're swabbing and where we, yeah.
Certainly. So, I mean, obviously, if somebody's bleeding profusely in a vehicle, you would expect to find some trace of blood in that vehicle, even if somebody tried to clean it up.
Yes.
Does it differ in your obviously, if there's a profuse amount of blood or a lot of bleeding or something like that from a gunshot or a stab wound or something like that, does that differ from what you might expect in another form of death like strangulation?
Yes.
And explain that to us. With
strangulation, I don't know in what situation we may find DNA regarding a strangulation.
Let me ask you a very related question to that. When there's a death by asphyxiation or strangulation, do you expect to find blood?
No.
Okay. I want to ask you about, in your experience with the Gwinnett County Police Department, have you ever been involved with or responded to any kind of overdose fatality where somebody dies from an overdose?
Multiple.
In those, what kinds of things do you find in terms of, let's be direct, in those, do the victims oftentimes, it will be vulgar, but vomit.
Yes.
Why is that?
I'm not really sure the medical reason, but you see it pretty much at every overdose.
So every overdose that you've been involved with, responded to, has that occurred?
Yes.
In the investigation into the defendant, did you find any stains, any evidence whatsoever that would be consistent with vomit in either of the defendant's vehicles?
I did not.
Okay. In the interview, and we watched it, we're not going to rewatch it, but in the interview, as you and Detective Poppy and Sergeant Jorstadt interviewed the defendant and explained all of the evidence that you outlined in that, at any point, did the defendant ever ask you how Susana died?
He did not.
I want to show you what I'm marking as. Show you what I've marked as exhibits number 45 and 46. I show them that's correct for the record. No, I didn't ask, but may I approach the witness? Thank you.
You can move around the courtroom.
Do you recognize what's contained? We'll start with State's Exhibit number 45.
Yes.
All right, and what is State's Exhibit 45?
It's Miles Bryant's personal cell phone.
All right. 46, do you recognize what's in State's Exhibit 46?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's Miles Bryant's City of Doraville cell phone.
Are those the two phones that we observed you in the interview take from the defendant as he was being interviewed on February 13th of 2023?
Yes, they are.
Are they in the same or similar condition as they were when you took them that day?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I move to admit State's Exhibit 45 and 46.
No objection.
State's Exhibit 45 and 46 are admitted without objection. Excuse me.
Judge. So, we looked at, or we heard from, we heard from Corporal Howard, who downloaded these phones. Once he downloaded the phones, did you receive a copy of the downloads from both of these phones?
Yes, I did.
When you got those, did you go through them looking for evidence in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I want to show you. Show them straight first. what I've marked as States Exhibit 1.1, 1.2, and 1.5. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
All right, and let's start with the first one, 1.1. What is it?
It is a search history from the cell phone, one of the cell phones.
Okay, from
Internet search history.
Internet search history, thank you. 1.2, what is that?
That is an activity sensor report from the cell phone.
Okay,
One of the cell phones, sorry.
all right, that's all right. And 1.5, what is 1.5?
These are pictures obtained of Susana from one of the cell phones.
Okay. Did you look at the cell phone and obtain the information that's contained in those 3 reports?
Yes, I did.
All right. Are they true and accurate copies of the information contained in Mr. Bryant's personal phone?
Yes, they are.
All right. And Judge, I moved to admit States Exhibit 1.1, 1.2, and 1.5.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, States Exhibit 1.1, 1.2, and 1.5 are admitted without objection.
Judge, may I publish them?
Yes.
And Detective Carter, we're going to start with 1.1, and I'm going to put that up on the screen. You have a copy there. It'll be on the screen as well. And what you see on the screen, is that what you're holding a copy of?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, you said internet search history a moment ago when you identified this. Does somebody's phone capture searches that they make on their phone through different internet browsers?
Yes, it does.
And did you go and look at that information on Mr. Bryant's personal phone?
I did.
Okay, and is that what reflected here, some of those searches here in States Exhibit 1.1?
Yes, it is some.
I'm going to zoom in here. Here, and I'm going to have you, I'm just going to zoom in so we can all see on the screens. You can use either the screen in front of you or the copy that you have. When you looked at this, would you read out the first search here that's at the top?
Will Gwinnett take a police report to be ready?
All right, and the one below that?
Will Gwinnett take police repo?
Okay. What was of interest to you in terms of those searches on the defendant's cell phone?
I know the wording is incorrect, but it seems like he's trying to see how long it would take for a report to be completed.
Through Gwinnett County?
Correct.
Okay. And in your investigation, why was that particularly relevant?
I was thinking he wanted to research and see what the report said.
Okay. Now, down here in the number 3 spot, what is the search that Mr. Bryant made on his phone?
Where to buy a vehicle tracking device.
When his vehicle was searched, his personal vehicle, were GPS tracking devices located in his vehicle?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And number 4 here, what is the search term there? It's at the top.
What cellular network does Xfinity Mobile use?
Okay. Now, what's the relevance of him searching for cellular networks at that point?
It could mean multiple things. It could mean he wants to see where his phone may ping at. It also could mean...
I'm going to object. She doesn't know. She's just offering hypotheticals. She doesn't know why he searched that. That's cause for speculation.
Judge, I don't think it calls for speculation. I think it's a proper avenue on cross-examination. If Ms. Drake wants to ask her about the relevancy of those.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. Go ahead, Detective.
It could also mean, I know he switched phones eventually. He could just be researching how well his cell service may be.
Sure. The one in number 5, though, what's different about that one?
If I unplug my, number 5, sorry. Verizon towers near me.
All right. So at some point, the defendant was searching for what cell towers were near him?
Correct.
Okay. Number 6.
If I unplug my bouncy, will it still work?
What is that? What is a bouncy?
It's a tracking device.
Okay. And then number 7.
How to hide a camera.
Okay. Number 8.
Honda CRV plug for tracker.
And what was relevant about the Honda CRV? What?
Synovia, his girlfriend at the time, drove a Honda CRV.
Okay. Then number 9, what are we looking at here?
Hidden camera store.
And number 10?
Hidden cam for your room.
Number 11.
Gwinnett teen found.
All right. So these are, in terms of the value here that we're looking at, these search terms, these are actual phrases that the defendant typed into his phone?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Number 12.
Gwinnett County jurisdiction map.
Okay. And number 13.
Garrity warning.
What is a Garrity warning?
When a police officer is under or has an IA investigation, the investigator with the police department will read Garrity to us.
And you say an IA investigation. What's an IA?
Internal affairs.
So, so there's does Garrity operate somewhat kind of like Miranda, the Miranda warnings that do for a normal person in the public?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. Number 14.
Does bouncy make any noise?
Okay, and again, that's the tracking device.
Yes, it is.
Number 15.
Cell phone tower near me.
And 16.
Cell phone tower map.
All right, number 17.
Can you unlock an iPhone with a photo?
And number 18.
Brick house security GPS.
And what is Brickhouse Security GPS?
It's another tracker.
Okay. Number 19.
Blink camera Best Buy.
All right. Number 20.
Attempted burglary OCGA.
All right. We go down to the third page here. Number 21.
Our police reports public record.
Okay. And the last one, number 22.
Our bouncy GPS worth it.
So you obtained all of those, you found all of those search terms in the defendant's personal phone?
Yes, those are some of them.
Okay. And I want to move to State's Exhibit 1.2. Why did you identified that as a physical track, I don't know if that was the word you used, physical tracker or
Activity sensor.
activity sensor, thank you. So what is a physical activity sensor?
Your phone tracks how many steps you take, sometimes your heart rate depending on if you're wearing a watch, and sometimes calories that you burned, again, if you're wearing like a watch.
Okay. And so does your phone collect and keep that data?
Yes, in regards to, yes, it does. With the steps, though, you can just have your phone.
And in the investigation, why did you look in the defendant's physical activity sensor data?
Because he said in his interview that he never got out of his truck.
Okay, and specifically in what context did he make those statements?
When he was on the side of 316, he never got out of his truck.
Okay, so did you look at his physical activity tracker to verify that information?
Yes, I did.
All right, and I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 1.2 here, and I'll zoom in so that we can see it here. All right, now here up where this says number 1, tell us the actually I'm going to move down here, excuse me. So we're going to bounce around here a little bit on this document because it's not perfectly in chronological order. But looking at number 10 here on this document, what time frame does the number 10 here at the top cover? And I'll try to zoom in a little bit more.
Number 10?
Yes.
It covers on July 27th, 2022, 9 a.m. till July 27th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Okay, and what results came from the physical activity tracker?
That he burned 75.88 kilocalories.
During that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to move to another number here, and I'll. And we'll just go up one here to number 9. And what are we looking at here, number 9, the time frame?
July 26, 2022 at 10 p.m. till July 26, 2022, 11 p.m.
Okay, and what were the results of that?
Distance traveled was 18.83.
And that's in meters?
Yes.
Okay.
He took 27 steps, again, traveled 18.83 meters and burned 75.88 calories.
Now, I'm going to move you